So today I want to talk about how I would approach learning a bebop melody, which actually is the same process as learning any other melody. And I've talked about this in previous videos as well, but today we're going to focus specifically on certain bebop melodies because they tend to be a little bit more intricate than your average American songbook standard. And the way I go about practicing this may seem like a bit of a waste of time to some of you, and maybe even overwhelming. And really, actually, it depends on what your goals are. If you just want to play the notes, then yes, it's a waste of time. But if your goal is to develop your ears, your knowledge, your vocabulary, then I think doing this, following this method or some variation of this method can be very, very beneficial. But before we start, please like, subscribe. It's the usual thing. This is one of my only sources of income, and if you can help out just a little bit, it would mean quite a lot to me. You can also maybe buy something at DC Music School or on SoundSlice. I have courses on bebop vocabulary, on gypsy jazz, harmony, courses on swing, phrasing, and all that stuff, all on SoundSlice. And did I mention DC Music School? I think I did. Or you can buy something on Bandcamp. Any little bit helps, so thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share, whatever, comment. Okay, so what you heard me play was the melody to Blues for Alice, as recorded by Charlie Parker. And then I did a little solo, I guess semi-improvised, because I spent a bit of time practicing over a backing track over and over again, trying to incorporate certain ideas that I took from the melody. In my opinion, one of the biggest secrets, well, it's not a secret at all, and a lot of people say it, but a lot of, I guess, beginners, or maybe not beginners, but a lot of people, students, are looking for shortcuts that don't exist, or they're looking for some secret magical formula. But as stupid as it may seem, one of the best ways to go about learning jazz, developing your vocabulary, is to learn a lot of songs, learn a lot of melodies, learn a lot of the songs, the harmony and the melody, and listening to a lot of music. But then there are people who do learn the songs, who do learn the melodies, but still have not developed their ears or their vocabulary. And why is that? Well, there could be different reasons, of course, but often in my experience, one of the main culprits is that they don't actually understand what they're playing. They're just playing the notes. Put your finger here and play the note. And what I'm advocating for is to understand what the note represents. Not necessarily in theoretical terms, but of course, if I were to explain things, I would use theoretical terms. But just to hear the relationship between the melodies and the harmonies, or the overall harmonic structure, the chord progression. And as I've said in previous videos, one of the best ways to do this is to take each and every single note that you play as a lead line and relate it to the harmony, or relate it to the overall key, the chord progression, etc. And that's exactly what I would do for something like Blues for Alice, which is what we call a bird blues. I don't know who came up with that term. I don't think he did. But anyway, it's an F. So I see this. This is already vocabulary. And then what we have this A7 chord, E minor 7 flat 5 to A7. And I see how it relates. So I see it's got the flat 9 here. Then we have this D minor, C minor. But Charlie Parker in his melody is thinking E flat major. because E flat major is an extension of C minor, and that's one of the bebop sounds. If you don't understand this theory, it doesn't matter. It basically means that over a C minor in general, you can play an E flat major arpeggio, and that's exactly what it is, what he does. So we have C minor. Then it goes to this note, which is over F7. It's the sharp 5 or flat 6. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, but the important thing is that you hear this in relation to this. Whether it's a sharp 5 or a flat 13. This is 13, flat 13. This is 5, sharp 5. The difference is in the semantics. In terms of, for the sake of jazz improvisation, the semantics are not so important, just this sound. And what's very cool, so when you have a 2-5-1, C minor to F7, you have this phrase. Then we have this B flat 7. I can see this chord, this B flat 7. And so then I know over this B flat 7 I can play a D minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. And then what does it do? It goes to this B flat minor thing. And this is very interesting. It goes to the so basically B flat minor and E flat 7, you can think the same thing because they are related chords, 2 and 5. Well, it's not actually, this is actually not a 2-5-1, but it's 4 minor. I've talked about this in other videos, and I also explained this in great detail in my harmony course, which you should check out. But just believe me that this and this are practically the same chords. And so what Charlie Parker is thinking, he's thinking again the extensions. This is the melody to a song called Honeysuckle Rose by Fats Waller. Very old song that actually targets the extensions. But Charlie Parker uses enclosures. What does he do? So this is pretty cool. He goes to the 13 of the E flat. But it doesn't matter. When you have a B flat minor or E flat 7, just have this cool lick. So let's say you're playing some C minor blues. Black Orpheus. And then in the chart, it might say it goes to A minor, then D7. But in the melody, Charlie Parker is thinking F, because A minor is basically an extension of F major. And so the melody goes over the B flat minor, see F, and these are the extensions of F. So when you have an F, this is a sound from way before the bebop era, as early as the 30s. So over F major, major 7 to the 6, typical bebop sound or 1930s sound. Next part, what does it do? Oh yeah, it's actually the same idea. So the exact same thing. And then we have this. Now, many people would be tempted to say that this is coming from the diminished scale. You could maybe analyze it this way, and unfortunately we may never ever know what Charlie Parker was thinking unless there's some kind of interview where he's explaining exactly what he's doing. If there is, let me know. But the thing is, in those days, thinking in terms of such scales like altered or diminished, It wasn't really a popular thing to do until much later, the end towards the second half of the 50s, early 60s. In those days, in the early days, a lot of it was based on chord tones. And what was very typical over a dominant chord, let's say you have a C7, was to play the flat 9 and the sharp 9. This is a sound that has been in use for a very long time, even before bebop, even I guess in classical music or something, like some kind of Spanish sounding thing. So over C7, yeah. And basically, it's just, it's in the key of F major, the C7 chord. I guess you want to call it C mixolydian, but then suddenly we add this. So he's thinking in terms of chord tones. And then you have this little turnaround phrase. Then this is over G minor. Notice that there's a B flat major arpeggio. So therefore over G minor, you can be thinking B flat. And basically that's what I do with every single melody, whether it's a simple melody or a complicated melody like this. I try to understand what each note represents in relation to the harmony, to the chord progression, or maybe not each note, even just groups of notes. Where are they coming from? And I play them and I try to visualize how they relate to the chords. On the guitar, you do this by playing chords as chord shapes, or you also, when you play the chord shapes and the melody on top, you just try to listen, use your ears to try to just absorb the sound. So basically, you won't be thinking in terms of theory. You just hear it. You just know what it sounds like. For example, when I was a kid, when I was much younger, my ears weren't so good. But because I learned to play jazz by ear through recordings, my ears got better and better naturally as a result of doing this exercise. But I remember back in the day, I probably wouldn't be able to hear like a C13 chord. But now, when I hear a dominant chord and I hear the 6, I just know, if I just hear this note in relation to this, let's say we're in the key of F, so 2, 5, and someone plays this, right away, in fact, before I even think that it's the 13th, I just know it's this note. For in the key of G, I just know it's going to be this note. I just hear it. So it's something that you can't even explain. And this is very important for improvisation, because when you're improvising, you don't have time to think. You have to react. And that's why doing this exercise is super, super important. It's like learning a language. Maybe you can, there are different aspects to learning a language for those of you who have experience doing this. You have reading skills, comprehension skills, like listening skills, and then there's speaking. And you may notice that a lot of people understand better than they speak. And when this happens, for me, it means that you still haven't understood the thing yet. And the only way to get your speaking level to the same level as your comprehension skills is to practice speaking. So on the guitar or whatever instrument you play, you have to put in the effort to constantly play these things. Like if there's a 13, you play, you just play the chord with the melody. So when you play the melody, you do this out of time, but you do a little chord melody. you can do it an octave higher. So. So. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm doing this in the moment. There's nothing prepared. Of course, if you're new to this, I can do it in the moment because I have a lot of experience doing this. But in the beginning, it's good to maybe prepare something. And you can do this with any melody. I've done videos about this. Like, take a melody like All of Me. That's what allows you to play in any key. So if I played All of Me in the key of A flat, what does it go after? The B flat. So, etc., etc., etc. Any melody you can do this with. And the same thing with Donna Lee. Ah, that's that flat nine sharp 9 thing. See, the same thing. That's a phrase right there. What does it go after? So it plays B flat, but then a D flat minor, D flat major 7 arpeggio. So it's the same recycled material. Anyway, yes, that's how I learned bebop melodies. And when you learn it this way, it becomes more than just memorizing the notes, where to put your fingers. You really understand the sound. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of a magical thing where a lot of times, well, I'm actually very familiar with theory because I have a degree in classical music theory, for those of you who don't know. So I do know a lot of elementary theory. In fact, I would dare say that I know a lot more than the average musician tends to know. But when I'm playing jazz or when I'm improvising, I'm barely thinking about such things. What it is that I'm hearing and I'm reacting. And I can react so fast because I've done the speaking thing so much. I've done the listening, the comprehension thing, and the speaking thing so much that they're both, well, I wouldn't say they're the highest level, but a fairly high level. So that when I hear something that's very familiar to me, it's automatic. And that for me is one of the most important skills that you can develop as an improvising musician. And it would be what I would consider to be practical ear training. I could actually make a video about ear training if you guys want to know about this practical ear training, because quite honestly, I don't really believe in these ear training apps like, here, what is this interval? What is this interval? Blah, blah, blah. Practical means that you're actually studying the music directly, rather than the academic theory thing. And I'm going to make another language analogy because many of you know that I'm studying in Japan. I'm living here in Tokyo right now. And I go to these classes. And there's this French woman in this class. And she's struggling a lot because she's learning purely from the academic way. And I've kind of been helping her a little bit, like showing her the quote unquote real way. Because before I ever studied Japanese, quote unquote, formally, the academic way, I learned it through the streets, through friends, and through speaking. It was very, very difficult in the beginning. But I can't say that I'm an advanced speaker, but whatever knowledge I have, it's very it's the real way of speaking Japanese. So when I went to the formal classes for the first time, like the teacher's like, "Whoa, you with what you know, you kind of sound native." And so with this French woman, I told her, "Hey, I watch these kids shows on Netflix, Hello Kitty. I would recommend that you watch it because it's vocabulary for toddlers, like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds." And so she watched episode 1 of Hello Kitty. I highly recommend. It's a really great series, full of intrigue, mystery, and adventure. But she told me I understood nothing. What were all these little words that I've never encountered before? Well, that's the thing. It's the real Japanese, at least the way spoken by a kid. Because when you're learning Japanese in school or any other language, chances are you're learning to speak like a robot. And for me, it's the same thing. So you're going to study all this theory. You're going to study, do these ear training exercises. What is this interval, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea, bad thing to do. But as a beginner, if your ears are not developed yet, it's far better, in my opinion, to learn real music. And that's exactly what I advocate for. And actually, I should probably make a video on ear training. You should comment if I should make a video on ear training. Because as many of you know, I've been very fortunate enough to have worked with so many musicians in my career, from the most famous and best to just your average professional musician to beginners and everything. And I've noticed something about perfect pitch. Technically speaking, perfect pitch, at least at its highest level, is the ability to naturally reproduce what you hear. Yet, I have met players who have perfect pitch who cannot improvise to save their lives. And why is that? Because they don't understand what they're hearing, or they don't hear anything worth playing. And therefore, they're relying actually on theory or the academic side of things to improvise. They're not playing what they hear, despite having perfect pitch. And so basically, all these little chunks from the melodies that I learned, that I listen to, I try to integrate them at their most cellular level so that I hear all sorts of possibilities in my ear. When a chord is being played, I hear this or that possibility. I talked about this in one of my videos where I was advocating for practicing licks. And then the next week, I made a video about don't practice licks. I am not a dogmatic person. I think of things as they are. Things are not necessarily inherently good or bad. They come with their advantages or disadvantages. And when to use one or the other system depends a lot on the individual. Sometimes for some people it could be good to learn this way, or others, and it depends on your current level. As you get better and better and better, I recommend learning in a way that's more suitable for your level. So in the beginning, of course, theory can certainly be very, very good for many people. But at one point, it has to become instinct. And then what happened with some players who honed their basic fundamentals, their instincts to a really, really high level, that's when some of them start to explore really advanced theory. Like John Coltrane started to experiment with all these crazy scales and modes and harmony and all that stuff. But that was later in his development as a musician. Before that, he was mainly an ear player, or as much as an ear player as they used to be back in the day. So basically everything in due time according to the situation. So there we go, that's it. And as I said in some previous video, yeah, I do this with every single melody line that I learn. Even when I'm looking at when I'm transcribing a jazz solo, I look at each note and see how it relates to the music. There we go. Thank you.